what I want you guys to look at when we're looking at a video or looking at a problem like this, basically the first thing we're going to talk about is, again, this limit notation. Okay? So again, this says the limit of f of x as x approaches infinity. And basically what that's really asking is, what value of our function are we approaching as our x approaches infinity? So basically, guys, just a kind of reminder, here's our x-axis, right? And here's our y-axis, typically. Or since we're talking about functions, we can also call this the f of x axis. And remember, that's kind of like your output axis, right? You have your input and you have your output. So input represents your x, and your output would be your f of x. Now, the next thing that we want to look at in this regard is as x approaches infinity. So we got to think about what direction are we going as x goes towards infinity. Well, here's the x-axis. So going to infinity, we'd be going to the right. All right? And basically what they're saying is, what is the value of the function f of x, which is the name of this function, that we are going towards? So you can say here's a point, right? Each point has an x coordinate and a f of x coordinate. You could call it a y, but since we're talking about functions, right? So let's think about it. As we kind of go to the right, right? If I go up, do you guys see how my x coordinate went a little bit to the right? Right? So as I keep on going, f of x gets larger, right? Now f of x is positive. Now f of x gets smaller, right? It's negative. Then f of x, as I keep on getting points, gets higher and higher and higher. So as I continue this pattern, f of x is going to be approaching what value? Infinity, right? As I keep on going to the right, f of x is going towards infinity. And that's something that we did in this class beginning of the year. And that was our end behavior in what we call limit notation. All right? So now let's do the same thing, but going to negative infinity. So I can kind of start farther over to the right. So as I'm kind of going to the left, my f of x values are going down. Now they're negative. Then they start going up again. Now they're positive. Then they start going down. And as I continue going to the left, my f of x values are going towards or approaching negative infinity. So usually the concept of end behavior you guys got at the beginning of the year. The thing where most of you got stuck was the notation, right? You've never seen limits before, and you guys got kind of confused. So that's kind of the purpose idea. After you guys are done with this, you guys should be oops. That's supposed to be -2. By the time you guys are done with this, what am I doing? These are all wrong values. Sorry about that. OK. I wrote them down the wrong numbers. So hopefully after a time with this, you guys will be a little bit more familiar with your limits. So in the next one, we have f of -2. Now, how do we evaluate f of -2? So basically what they're saying is, what is the function value at -2? And well, guys, we don't know what this function is, right? I mean, we don't know the equation. But remember, back in the day, not back in the day, but not too long ago, if I had a function like this and I said f of -2, all you did was take the -2 and plug it in, right? And you plugged it in to find the output. So your x was your input, and your f of x would have been your output. So basically, if I go to -2, what is my output? 3, right? So that's important. That means the value of the function at -2 is equal to 3. Okay? And you could say that's a coordinate point, of -2, -3, right? So now let's kind of look at limit notations as we're going towards -2. Now you guys can see there's these little pluses and minuses. And we did talk about this in our rational functions. Yes? Yes, it is positive 3. I don't know why I wrote a negative. So as we're approaching -2, if you guys remember from different directions. So the plus, this little plus up here, what that means is right hand. Okay? So what it's asking is, as we approach -2 from your right, what value are we approaching? And again, I'll say this one more time. What value are you approaching? It does not need to equal that value. Yes?
Wouldn't it be negative infinity?
So as we're approaching -2, so as we get really, really close to -2, what value are we getting towards? So watch. From the right hand, as we get really, really close to -2, like really, really close. Like we're not going past -2. We're just going to get really, really close to -2. What value? Now we know at -2 it's 3, right? So as we're getting really, really close to it, what are we approaching? 3, right? Well, that's what we're getting towards. We're going towards 3. Now, let's do it from the left. So from the left, and as I follow this graph and I get closer and closer to -2, from the left, what f of x value am I approaching? 3. And last but not least is what we call the general limit. So the general limit, we're asking what value are we approaching from the left and from the right. So you're going from the left. So what value are we approaching from the left and from the right? What output value are we approaching? 3. And there you go. That's it. Yes?
How did you get, like, for the first two, because it's infinity and negative?
Right, because you're going to infinity. You're never stopping.
Oh.
Right? Never stops. How far are you going? As you're going to the right, that's going to go infinitely up. Right? Here, they're not stopping, but we're approaching a number, saying, hey, what is it going to as you get to that number? Make sense?